On almost any SKAARHOJ controller, you'll find a button. It's the most basic device for input on a broadcast controller. And generally, buttons are backlit. They can be red, green, yellow. They also have a nice tactile feel, and that's why you know you don't want to use a touch screen when you control your live show. You simply need to feel the button. In the UniSketch universe, our universal firmware, buttons can be configured to control many things. The most obvious would be to select the source for program or preview, but you could even assign it to iris, in which case it would throw a auto iris command to a camera, for instance. So in this video, I'll show you how buttons are configured. And we here have a E21 SLD controller. It's power over Ethernet powered. So I plug in the cable and you'll see the controller boots up, shows which model number we have here, and that connections are okay. Great, so apparently it's connected, in this case to an ASIM switch. You can see it on the screen behind me. So let's just quickly check. As I press this button, you see the preview source is changed. As I press this button, I enable and disable the upstream keyer number 1. And here we have cut auto. So the UniSketch firmware that runs on this unit has a web interface. And to enter the web interface, in order to change configuration for these buttons or see how they are configured, you need to stick a pen tip into this hole. That is a configuration button, and you hold it until that LED lights up blue. So you'll see it's now in configuration mode. You see the IP address of the controller, and in your web browser, you go to this IP address. You see I already loaded it up. I can just refresh the page, and then you see the controller loads up. And to access the configuration of the button I just referred to, you simply click the button in the nice graphical overview. So, and I did that there. You see, in the default case, source number 1 is put on preview. So you also see how this button is configured for shift functionality. So if I hold down the shift key, it is going to be input number 5. And on the controller, you can see there is a shift key embedded here, which will enable that functionality. Let's just work in the normal case here. So assume that we rather want to change this to put sources on auxiliary. A controller like this one would be a great secondary controller, for instance. It would allow you to have a master controller, like a desktop console, for the main program feed, and you could hand this out to somebody controlling iMac, screen projections, an auxiliary output, basically. So let's change it to auxiliary. All I need to do is to select ATEM auxiliary output source, choose my auxiliary channel. That would be 1 through 6. Let's say it's number 2. And we keep the source, it's 1, but we also could have selected something else. Actually, let's say that we pick the source that goes on multi-viewer tile number 1. Okay, like that. And then we simply copy this functionality to the next field. So you press the copy button here, and then the insert button here, and then that's going to pretty quickly copy this configuration down here. And okay, so it's going to be multi-viewer 2. I need to set this to 6 again, and then I can insert it down here. Then it would be multi-viewer 3, and input source number 7 there, and so forth. Let's save this and see if it works. So for button 1, 2, and 3, I now change the configuration to work with auxiliary sources. Yeah, I need to bring it out of configuration mode. Most easily, you just pull out the cable and plug it in again, and now it boots up. So let's see what happens. There we go. Okay, so I now press input number 1, input number 2, or button number 3, and you see something is happening at least. To confirm that it's actually changing sources on auxiliary, let's look at the ATEM software control, which is connected to the same ATEM switcher. So the software control will reflect the settings that I command my controller here to send to the ATEM switcher. And in the menu, we see which sources are on auxiliary 1. Oh, it was auxiliary 2, by the way. So I go to auxiliary 2. You see currently we have camera 3 on auxiliary 2. As I press button number 2, we get camera 2, button number 1, camera number 1. So it worked. Now, why was it exactly that it was camera 1, 2, and 3? Remember, I assigned multi-viewer tile number 1, 2, and 3 to these buttons. So in fact, I would need to go to the multi-viewer configuration in my ATEM software control. I can go to the settings of the ATEM software control, go to the multi-view here, setup, and then you see on tile number 1, 2, and 3, we have camera 1, 2, and 3. Now, with the configuration I made, if I change this to camera 4, 5, and 6, okay, and I press done, this controller is now going to put source 4, 5, and 6, camera 4, 5, and 6 on auxiliary 2 when I press the buttons. Let's see if that works. Okay, so we currently have camera number 1 on auxiliary 2. I hope you can see this. So I push this button, it jumps to camera 4, the next one to camera 5, and camera 6. So it works as expected.